All right. So thank you so much for coming, everyone. I feel particularly grateful to be having this conversation and connecting around the material because I'm heading off to Enlightened Society Assembly in 10 days, and it just feels so timely. And I'm feeling like I get as much out of these conversations because of our connection as I do out of my study material. So thank you. And with that, I'm Janet. I live in Toronto, Canada, where I'm a member of the Toronto Shambhala Center. I'm a student, meditation student of Shastri Kranz's. Shastri Kranz lives just outside of Boston, Massachusetts. He has been a student of Sakyong Mipham Rinpoche since 1997. He was appointed Shastri in 2013 and teaches the Shambhala path pretty much wherever there's a Shambhala center. And in addition to that, has developed an approach to cultural transformation with the practice of social meditation. And you can find out more about Shastri Kranz and the work that he does and sign up for his weekly video blog at www.nitkranz.com. And with that, over to you.
Thank you, Janet. It's so good to see you and everybody. And I thought this evening, this gathering, we could take on a particular slice of the Sakyong's Shambhala Day address that we had been working on and pick a particular part and go in more detail. And I also thought we could try to do a little bit of in the form of social meditation, which, you know, I haven't done so much online, but more as a form of in-person practice. But I have done it a little bit, and so it's something that I can offer as a view here. I'll present a little bit of our topic and maybe facilitate, but then we can go through it and really, it's really drawing on all of our wisdom. And there's really no obligation to have to say anything or not. So I'll explain the view of this particular form of practice and discussion. So social meditation is a continuation of our meditation practice, and we're just applying some key points of body, speech, and mind to the way that we're going to communicate as meditation. So we can see how that unfolds. The purpose of this is for us to discover our own willingness to be with ourselves as we are on the spot in the social arena or dynamic. It is not that complicated, but I'm here, of course, to help out in any way if any clarification of what it is that we're doing or not doing. So I'll start out with the instructions. The first instruction is actually for our posture. So during this gathering, this call, this time in front of our computer, but collectively we're together, this is a moment where we can work with our meditation posture. And it's sort of an offering to each other saying, hey, I'm here, I'm present, or I'm practicing that or trying to be here. And I'm offering that visage, my appearance of that, to you. So that's just sort of something to help us return to the present moment. And it's a foundation of listening as well. It really helps us listen deeply. The next part of the instruction has to do with speech. And here we talk about congruency of communication. So it's really just saying, like, all of this nonverbal, this is the majority of how we communicate. And if what we're feeling inside, we can actually bring that out and share that, speaking from our feelings and nowness, feeling our own personal experience, then what we're offering is very vivid, personal intimate and powerful. It's really our sort of growing edge, or what we're working with. And that's such a generous thing to offer to our fellow practitioners. So, this means that we're not necessarily giving each other advice. It's not so much about questions, although obviously, in the case of when there's a teaching involved, if you do have a question for me, that's okay. But usually what we're doing is really just exploring. And as you'll see, the content for tonight is very experiential and lends itself well to this kind of approach. And the idea is that we don't have to agree or say the same thing as others have said. We may end up doing that, but really being true to ourselves and looking at what our experience of what's arising is like. Finally, the instruction for our mind or heart is said to be vulnerability bravery. And what this means is that it's actually inseparable. That when we allow what people are saying to touch us, that takes enormous bravery to hold space for that. When we hold space for what we're feeling and what others are sharing, that's actually bravery. So it's an inseparable quality of a culture of being in nowness together, in a culture of allowing ourselves to really dig in to what's most sort of potent or alive for us. So with that, we can do this, I guess, in the same format that if we were in a circle, usually, someone would raise their hand and then start speaking. But in this case, there's only a few of us, so I think we can manage just, paying attention to each other's needs there. So I thought I'd present a little bit from the address, and then we'll just open up into this more exploration together quality. So where we left off, I remember us getting to the point in the address where we did a lot, but we talked about so what we're doing is not just simply a path of meditation, it's a social vision, it's a life vision. He then goes on to say, can we engender these qualities that have been so long studying and contemplating? This is the time, ladies and gentlemen, for us to manifest. This is the time to bring these principles and not just leave them in our shrine room or our practice pages. We are actually celebrating a passage of time. The time is moving forward, and the sequence of time is that what will happen in the future will be determined by what we are doing now. How we relate to each other at a family level, at a personal level, is creating waves, invisible waves. That is determining the future of society at a very small micro or macro level. So now that's sort of the backdrop. And then here's what I thought we could explore. Simple human qualities of love, friendship, openness, trust, dignity, fearlessness is something that we should share. I agree. I think we're all in. I don't think there's, if you don't agree, please, you can talk about that. But I think that's probably a good idea. But I thought what we could do in this practice together is talk about how we could start with love and just go around and see. You don't have to say anything if you don't want to, but how are we working with love in our daily life with, at the personal, family, communal level, interactive level, with our animal? And where is the challenge to love? How are we working with it? And where is there kind of a challenge there? That could obviously be the entire time we're together, but I'm thinking here we're really just digging deep and thinking about something pithy. And yeah. And maybe with that, I could begin just to model a little bit of this, and then we'll see what happens. I think for myself right now, I'm working with this feeling of love is sort of the heart or energy source of my home life with my wife. And I think the challenge there is, for me, it feels around some kind of patience of, it's one thing to love when things are going well, but when things start to get difficult and things get intense, I've actually really been relying on, feeling my heart and trying to remember that when I feel challenged or when I feel like I'm misunderstood in dynamics with close people in my life. And really, I feel like there's a feeling of like, when I remember that, it's like, oh, right, don't blow it. Don't do that thing that never works. But, I think that's sort of an edge for me to kind of, it's not remembering love, actually. It's remembering that I'm feeling, and that I might feel tender, or I might even feel raw, or I might even feel edgy. But if I can remember that I'm feeling that, then the love is right there. So anyway, I don't know if that makes sense, but that's what I'm working with around love and both inspiration and challenge. So now I'll open it up to you if you have anything. Sherry.
Am I on?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't have green around me. I didn't know. I have a sister. I have two sisters, but one of them who is extremely difficult because she's, she's mean and she's hurt me many, many times. And I've tried to figure out, I don't like her, but yet she's my sister. And where's the love? And I've looked at this for a few years. I tried to kind of make the relationship better by doing things with her and stuff, but she's not willing to make any moves. So one of the things that I'd read once is about feeding your demons, if you know what I'm talking about. And so I started thinking with her, what is it she really, really needs? What is it she wants? And, I grew up, my folks were divorced, and I had to take care of her. She's 6 years younger. So through high school and stuff, I had to take care of her. And she didn't like it. She rebelled the whole time because here's her older sister telling her what to do. And so I looked at that because it seems like her self-esteem is like awful. And I thought, what can I do, And she doesn't want me to be better than she. She doesn't want me to know more than she does and things like that. And I thought, it's not going to hurt me to be less than so she can feel better and that tension is gone. In other words, when, not be the one who knows the answer, not, just not say that stuff. And, I've tried it and she seems to blossom when I do that. I don't go there and when she says something, I go, oh, wow, that's really neat. And things like that. And it seems to be helping anyway. It helps her. And so anyway, that's where I am. It's my sisters. Those are the only family I have. And we don't have very good relationship, between us at all. So anyway, I guess if that makes any sense, that's where I am and what I'm working on.
Thank you. Janet.
Nick, I totally resonated with what you were saying. I feel like I'm working with similar stuff. Those moments with my partner or other people near and dear to me when I feel misunderstood or frightened of something happening or not happening. the challenge for me is to remember that I really do care about this person. I really do want to be kind to them. I don't want to hurt them. And that part about, actually feeling what's in here. If I can come down here instead of staying up here, it seems easier to come back to that tenderness and caring.
I live alone with my cat. My children are grown. And I think sometimes for me with my children, the challenge is they're adults and it's a different kind of love or a different kind of interaction than when they were younger as a mother and child. So I sometimes find that the word that comes to mind is unrewarding in a sense, because when they're little, it's easy to pick them up and hold them and, have these little joyful moments but when they're adults, it's a different relationship. So the love isn't shown in the same way. There are hugs and there are I love yous, but it's different. So sometimes I find that a challenge, especially since even though we have good relationships, we're all very independent of each other and have our own lives and aren't the kind of family that gets together every few days or every week for dinner or anything like that. So that I found sometimes a challenge because I keep thinking, am I doing everything I need to be doing? Am I doing everything okay? Are they okay? Do I need to go ask them questions about how their life is, or am I butting in? And then how much of this am I stirring up in myself where I don't even need to worry about it? So there's that piece of it. But I think the other thing for me that in practice and in what I'm learning, and when there are contemplations, and especially on days that are not just hunky-dory fun and dandy, but maybe I do something really stupid, which I did a few days ago, and I was going, why did I do that? Why did I do that? So for me, the piece of love that is really a challenge that I am truly working on and keep coming back to is finding the love for myself. And it's easier said than done. And sometimes I get a little snippet of it, but then there's that overriding, you shouldn't have done that. You're just not working the way you should. So that's truly where I'm trying to work with these feelings. And I do feel it. And that's what's amazing to me, is that when I sit with that for a while and I do let that heart feeling come in and it's about me, it really is kind of amazing. And it does open up I can see a little bit of where we're trying to go with this. So that's all.
Yeah, I'll just share, like, listening to you, I felt such I feel such a resonance because it's like, oh, that kind, that feeling of like, oh my gosh, like I actually can acknowledge myself. Like I can actually be there for myself. That's not a given. You know, that's our path. And it's like amazing when that, just when you're talking about that, I was like, oh yeah, that flash, that feeling, it's really very touching. Thank you. Stephen, do you want to say anything about love before we move to our next? Uh, you don't have to, I'm just checking.
To feel how to describe what I was thinking when I was hearing everybody. The one thing that comes to mind for me is I've started hanging out with my nephew quite a bit right now since I've been off of work, and he's actually off of work too. And even though I've known him all my life, we hadn't spent this much time together, so it was really it made me realize, just even though I've known this person all my life, or all of his life, and I love him, I never really had known him, so it just made my love for him much more real, and with more understanding of, why he behaves the way he does, or just that mixing together. It kind of makes me think also, there's often when if I'm away from people, or people that I know and that I love, then a lot of times I'll think in my mind certain, perceptions of them that aren't quite real. And then when I get in their company, just feeling their energy spurs up all this, true love and understanding and emotions. So it's interesting how when you're by yourself, you can view things differently and not so clearly.
Oh yeah. Totally know what you mean. It's like you can get into this story of, and then like when someone's there, they're like alive and changing, and they're like, well, they don't fit into that. I mean, that was somewhat true, but not, that's just a memory or something. It's like, it's a placeholder. Maybe it's somewhat useful, but wow, look at you.
Yeah, it can be so different. You're right.
Yeah, totally. Wow, guys. Well, that was the exhilarating first round here. I'm very touched by all of you and your presence. And, this is a funny thing. It's like, yeah, we're just talking, but we're meditating. We're actually in presence. We're feeling what we're saying while we're saying it, and we're feeling what others are saying in a really deep way. I feel like if you just sit there and meditate when you listen to music, you might find yourself crying. You just listen to a song because it hits you so right deeply. So I'm really encouraging that. And you don't have to have any waterworks, but just saying it's okay to be touched here. This is part of this practice, and the stillness of the posture and really listening. I find it creates a real vibrancy and vividness. So I appreciate you guys so much playing along with that. So I don't know that we'll get through all of these in our time. This doesn't matter, but I'll bring up, maybe we can have a little more, we'll do 2 at a time, and you can pick something you want to, you don't have to do everything, or you can. It doesn't matter. We don't have to complete anything. The next 2 qualities after love were friendship and openness. And, maybe those are connected, but maybe and again, here what I'm sort of evoking is this quality of, where is there that edge of challenge, and where's there that notion of inspiration, and how do they kind of interact? Yeah. I'll just say briefly that I find openness can be delightful and terrifying. Because sometimes openness is like, oh yeah, it's a beautiful flower and thunderstorm. And then sometimes it's like, so something really painful that isn't confirming my expectations or what I'd like to see happen. It's like, ouch, I'm going to stay open and not like try to change this or make it something else. But, and I guess for me, that just does seem connected with friendship, of course, because, you know, the ups and downs in a connection. I guess I'll add one more thing. When friendship comes around, I feel like for me, one of the edges is like, I don't want to burden my friends when I'm like looking at something challenging. And I find like, of course you want to be held or seen by your friends when you're having a challenging thing going on. So there's a little tension there for me around like, obviously I feel good giving to my friends, but then when it's sort of maybe that I feel like I'm taking a pedal, that's sometimes challenge for me. So it's just interesting to look at the way that wiring comes up. Yeah. Go, Sherry. Your mic's off, Sherry, so you have to turn it. You have to turn on your microphone.
Oh, really?
I turned it on for her.
Huh?
I turned it on. Should be good.
Okay. Yeah, I can relate to what you just said, Nick, totally. Because I don't want to burden my friends. I don't want to push them away and that kind of stuff. And so I'm afraid to say too much or whatever. And and openness for me is since I've been so closed for so many years, it's very hard for me to be open in certain situations. And it just depends on who I'm talking to. You know, I have a friend who says sometimes she's when she goes somewhere with me and I'm with somebody else, like in particular a sister or something, and she'll say, "You don't feel like you can be yourself in that situation, can you? Because I must be totally different and closed and that kind of stuff." So I'm not always aware of it, obviously, but I find it hard to expose myself since like I say, I have a habit of keeping very, very closed and trying to keep things to myself. So I guess that's about it. That's the challenge, and I can't think of anything else on it. But.
I hear you.
I was telling Janet and Stephen that I'm going to New Mexico tomorrow to see my sister. And my other sister and her husband are coming to New Mexico over the weekend, so I'll be seeing them as well. And what I found myself thinking about when you were talking, Nick, was it's kind of like the openness and friendship. And here I have a relationship with each of my sisters. And my sister in New Mexico has a housemate, and I have a relationship with her. And my relationship with my brother-in-law has been kind of strained. And so here we're all together. And as you were speaking, I could see myself interacting with my sisters and being real guarded when my brother-in-law is around, because he's tends to say things without thinking, and he hurt me very deeply once. And I hate to say it, but I haven't really gotten over that, and I should. I'd like to. I'm working on it. So I have this picture in my mind of here I am at a gathering and different degrees of openness, being able to, and the challenge will be to try to be as open as I can be and not shut down or close down because of fear of what someone may think or say. That's where I'm with that.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Go, Janet.
Um, I actually had something come up just within the last week or so, with totally unexpected. Someone that I'm working with just kind of totally unexpectedly went, "Oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed. I don't know what to do." And I just see this person as being like totally together all the time and in control. And but seeing that vulnerability, I suppose, allowed me to open and make a little bit more space for all of the people in my life that might not have it together all the time, including me. um, and there was a bit of a torrential downpour after that interaction. That was part of the opening, I think, and letting go of that particular expectation. And also, I think there was a deepening of our connection as well. Um,
I've noticed that I've been in a group, a little sangha here in my hometown. We have like 6 or 7 people that meet once a week, and so during this, we do a little meditation, then we'll go around and share and try to express how we feel about the last week. And I've noticed just from doing that, it seems like the more I do it with them, the more I feel comfortable being open. And it's almost like it's sort of like learning to play a musical instrument or something. The more I practice it, it's kind of the easier that channel can stay open, and I can that it's okay to to reveal my emotions and feelings and things.
Yeah, I'm just like hearing these examples. It's like um, there's so much universality to it, and like um, I'm feeling this sort of, as uh, warriors, people who are willing to try to be a part of open-heartedness in the world, and how that creates waves, like just these little investments and interactions and these little choices have a huge possibility, even if it's tiny. So I'm just touched by that. And I'm feeling particularly like each of what you shared, I was like, yeah. So it's just neat. So we have 3 more qualities in our time left. Maybe we can take on 2 more in this next round and see how they play off each other. I don't know. Trust and dignity. Those are good ones. Trust. how do we work with trust? What's a challenge and what's an inspiration, and dignity, challenge and inspiration. Sherry.
Trust, which is horrible. I just the other day I was journaling and I thought, oh my gosh, here I go again. I think, you know, because I have a history of not being able to trust as I was growing up. And I went to a concert once and I sat there and I did not believe those people were going to show up on stage until they actually got on stage. I figured something was going to happen to keep them from being there because I wanted to see them so badly. And, you know, I keep saying, well, people let me down. That's why I don't trust. And actually, I think it's more my expectations. But and it really, I'm trying to think of the word. I'm not sure how to change that. I haven't figured out, except maybe not to have expectations. So maybe somebody else has something that can help me with this. But it just seems like it's been there. You know, even when there's some people I can trust, and when I trust them, I trust them. And but I don't know. I just have difficulty with it, and I don't really have a anything else to say about it except that I really have difficulty with it. And so I'll let somebody else talk, and maybe they can give me something, because it's frustrating. It's agonizing sometimes. And then I start blaming myself for, you know, well, they don't like me and I'm not good enough, and, you know, that kind of crap. So anyway, I'll let somebody else talk.
Yeah, sure.
I can identify with that, Sherry, so I will just say that. Two things struck me about this, and again, there's trust and there's dignity, and Nick, I think you're right. I'm not seeing a combination right off the bat, but I'm going to go with dignity, because this is one that, again, circling back to family, I have a son who is always just half an inch from being homeless. And he has mental health issues and has had substance abuse issues. So trust does tie into that, because he's lost any kind of trust from anybody throughout his actions over the last 20 years. But by that same token, and then it's easier for me to do this when I think of the larger population. And that is that I've known him since he was born. I know what he was at different points in his life. And I know that he has a good heart. And there's dignity in that. And when I can try to see that and touch that and feel that, even though I don't like who he has become, I can also recognize that not all of it is because he made a conscious choice. I'm going to go out and do this bad thing, or, you know, not treat myself well. A lot of it is mental health. But somewhere in there, there is still this basically good person. And there's dignity in that. And I'm reminded of that when I drive past the little homeless camps that are around. It helps me to see people differently. At the same time, there's always a challenge to not be frustrated or angry or why don't they do something? Why doesn't somebody do something for them? Why doesn't the system work? You know, the whole 9 yards. So that's kind of where I am with that. Kind of the challenge and the inspiration.
Feel just a lot of emotion, like hearing the like trust is how we've been hurt, and then like how that trust is like, I'm not sure I want to do that because it feels unsafe. And that seems really intelligent and sane. And then there's like trust that's like my contraction because I just don't even want to get into any pain. And I don't know that there is a connection here, but I'm just going to play with it for myself. Dignity would be connected to confidence and connected to the root of trust, which is like, I'm not, I guess for me, like my dignity is my worthiness. And that's a funny one because there are times where I feel worthy and times where I feel shaky. But especially when I feel shaky, like to touch worthiness or to touch the feeling of like, no, it's okay to be a person who's feeling what I'm feeling, whatever that is. That seems very dignified. And it also seems like for me, that has something to do with how I would move towards knowing when to trust and when to pull back. Is like, if I don't trust myself or if I don't think I'm worth or worthy, or if I don't feel that worthiness, it's really hard to be there for myself when I do reach out and things go wrong. So I don't know, just something about that that seems in there for me.
I feel like since I've started practicing a meditation and being in the Open Heart Sangha and listening to the teachers and reading, it, it seems like I've been able to become friends. You know, they say that in the teachings that as meditation is basically becoming friends with yourself. And it does seem like the more that I've gotten to know or be able to just be with the different parts of myself that I had normally just wanted to, you know, escape from and just not accept or not be with, like just being bored or lonely or angry, all these different things that I normally didn't want to notice about myself. It seems like the more that I became okay being with those types of feelings and just, I guess, basically like being friends with myself, I felt more trusting to be open like that with other people and actually, you know, it's okay to experience their whatever they're going through and whatever I was going through. So I feel like this practice has helped in developing that type of trust and with other people.
And I thought I'll just do a little bit of a facilitator thing here and just ask you, Stephen, if you could describe how that feels when you do trust yourself, or when you do feel like, how would you describe that in your subjective experience? What is that like? I mean, use whatever words if you want, but how would you say that?
I guess there was like at one point, if I was by myself and feeling lonely, like I was sort of had an empty space in myself, and would maybe daydream about past relationships or something, and I would really get involved and lost in those type of daydreams or whatever. um it really did seem, it's like getting to a point where, hey, it's just okay to be kind of uncomfortable. It was like a peace, kind of a peaceful, I guess, type feeling. It's not really very descriptive, but just more of an accepting of that it was okay to, the loneliness turned into a type, it was a loneness, but not maybe so lonely anymore.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Do you have any thoughts, Janet, before we might move on to fearlessness? You don't have to. It's totally up to you. Just wanted to check.
There's something bubbling up around just as I'm listening and feeling touched by everything that I'm hearing. There's something about letting myself feel touched that allows me to trust. And maybe it's almost trusting my own sense of being touched, or trusting almost like trusting that it doesn't really matter what happens next. I will get through it. And it's funny how there's also a dignity associated with that. When I allow myself to be touched and to trust, I can feel my own dignity, and I can feel your dignity too.
That is so interesting, because what just in hearing that, my inside of myself, I was like, oh, isn't that interesting? It's like the reverse end of the stick. It's like we think if we're safe, then we'll trust. But it's actually like if we can feel, then we can trust. It's like kind of, it seems like two goes before one or something. Or another way of talking about that might be the pain of protection, is it greater than the pain of being with what's happening? Like, I feel like, these are things we have to kind of feel our way through, right? And the pain of protecting ourselves can seem numbing and seem like, well, that wasn't so bad. But then later there's a feeling of kind of like, oh, or I'm not doing it right, or I'm missing something. And then on the other hand, we can trust and get interaction, and can we be with what we'll feel? In this case, it almost seems like a commitment to being willing to be with what we feel. It's a weird definition of trust, but I'm liking it. Anyway, very wise. What comes out of people, our collective, the group's wisdom. It's really interesting. So in our last little section here, fearlessness is the final quality. And these simple human qualities of love, friendship, openness, trust, dignity, fearlessness, it's something that we should share. And what I think he's saying is that something is part of the invisible wave. It's part of the ethics that we could provide at a time where it isn't that common necessarily, or it isn't that easy to do. Or there's a lot of speed and aggression. So can we be an example? And in this case with fearlessness, maybe we could think about just sort of, doesn't have to be a haiku, but it could be very brief, just maybe a sentence of how we understand fearlessness in our experience. Something like that. So with that, maybe we can try that. And if you don't have anything, you don't have to say anything. It's not like a test. It's just an opportunity if something strikes you. Go, Shirley.
So it'll be brief, because I think what Janet described was pretty much touching on fearlessness. And I'll add to that just briefly. The 15th here in Austin, I start the Fearlessness in Everyday Life class. So ask me in 10 weeks or 8 weeks. But no, I think Janet, that being willing to be there and then let it happen, that's fearlessness.
Beautiful. Stephen, yeah.
This may seem silly, but the first thing that came to mind for me was, you guys know, like every time we sit down and we start our practice meditating, eventually, for me at least, it takes a few minutes before I realize, oh yeah, I'm supposed to now just concentrate on my out breath. And the first thing that came to mind was, I take that first out breath and it's sort of like, ah. And for some reason, that to me is describing fearlessness. It's just being able to just go with that out breath and do the practice.
Beautiful. Sherry.
Fearlessness in my life. But anyway, to me, it's being not afraid of my feelings, of who I am, accepting that and allowing it to be. And that's kind of what I imagine it to be anyway.
Fantastic.
Fearlessness is letting go of my agenda and trusting the wide open space of no agenda.
Beautiful. Well, going last, maybe it's easy because you get all your great sharings. But I guess feeling fear. Just feeling it. Like actually really feeling it. As opposed to like feeling it for a second and being like, well, that's got to go. Or seeing those thoughts and be like, feel those, feel the whole thing. Oh, you know. And then it's like, can I ride that feeling? Can I be with it? I think it's very similar to what you guys were saying, but yeah. I do feel like this is this amazing thing that people are watching us, like our family and friends and sanghas and, you know, people we encounter. And it's not like, you know, it's not like a pressure situation particularly. But then again, there is this quality of like, well, here we are. We're people who are trying to be compassionate and with ourselves and with others. And so these are incredible. All of what you guys have said is a measure of how deeply you all are committed to working with these things and working with these principles. And I know when I first heard this for myself, I was like, oh, that's such a simple list. It's like, yeah, of course, right? But then when you dig into it, like anything that's gold, you know, you look, it's like, oh my gosh, it just keeps expanding, getting bigger. So I really appreciate you guys in unpacking this wisdom and sharing it here. And for everyone who couldn't make it, that you can see this and join in. And if you want to share anything, you know, please contact me and share. I did want to say just a little thing before we close that, you know, I'm trying to figure out how we can do this more regularly. And I've been thinking about, you know, this sort of notion of how we could gather, you know, once a month doing this, and then also wanting to offer something useful to you guys. And I've now got a little membership thing on my website, which is, you know, $9.99 a month. I don't know. It's sort of just a fledgling thing. I'm trying to learn how to make a living doing this stuff of teaching and then also provide something useful to whoever wants that. So I'm still sort of developing that, but one of the ideas would be a regular meeting like this. And then also there's this app, which is Voxer, where you could share voice messages and questions and answer, and you can have a little dialogue, something that's coming up around your practice or something you want to discuss that you read. We could also pick a book and go through it as like a book club, which would feel really rich. And any other ideas you have, if you're interested in something like that, just email me. But anyway, it's great to see all of you here. And I so appreciate your practice. What an awesome gathering. Janet, do you have anything to say before we bow out?
No, I just unmuted everyone so that we can, you know, do that thing that we do, that gentle warriors do, so that we'll all know we're together.
All right. Kiki,
so.
Hey, Hello, DRK, Kiki, so, Ashe, Lagelo, Takseng, Kyundruk, DRK, Kiki, so, Ashe, Lagelo, Takseng, Kyundruk, DRK. Next time we do it, we'll type it in so you can channel along if you want. So thank you guys so much. Have an awesome evening. Super great way to spend the time with you, and see you around.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
Thank you.